The sky was burning. Thelsara stood at the observation window of the colony's central tower, watching as another wave of radiation swept across. Kepler 442b. The protective shields flickered and dimmed with each pulse. Her 3 children were somewhere below in the shelters, probably scared and asking when the sky would stop hurting. She didn't have an answer for them. Administrator, the readings are getting worse, said Kevlon from the communications station. His voice shook slightly. The star is decaying faster than our scientists predicted. We have maybe 4 days before the shields fail completely. 4 days. Thelsara closed her eyes. The Varan colony had been here for 12 years. They had built homes, farms, and schools. They had made this world their own. And now their son was dying in a way no one had seen coming. Send the distress call again, she said quietly. Broadcast on all frequencies. Someone has to hear us. Kevlon nodded and turned back to his station. Within moments, their message went out into the darkness of space. It was a simple message. They needed help. They needed evacuation. 12,000 lives hung in the balance. The message traveled through space at the speed of light, jumping through relay stations and communication hubs. It reached the great civilizations of the galaxy within hours. The Galactic Council chambers were located on a neutral space station, floating between the territories of the 5 great powers. The building was ancient and grand, built from materials that seemed to glow with their own light. Here, the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy made their decisions. Council speakers in Thara floated at the center of the chamber. She was Luminian, a being made of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell. Her light pulsed softly as she addressed the council. We have received a distress call from the Varan colony on Kepler 442b, she announced. Their star is experiencing rapid decay. They request immediate evacuation. All 12,000 colonists will die without intervention. The council chamber filled with murmurs and discussions. Representatives from 5 civilizations were present, each very different from the others. The architects were massive beings made of living silicon. They moved slowly and thought even more slowly, but their engineering knowledge was unmatched. Their representative, a towering figure named Termas, was the first to speak. The Varans chose a poor location for colonization, Termas rumbled. His voice sounded like grinding stone. We warned them that young stars in this sector were unstable. They proceeded anyway. We cannot rescue every species from their own poor decisions. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Next came the Tideburn representative, flowing across the floor in her water-filled environmental suit. My people sympathize with the Varans, she said, her voice bubbling through the translation system. However, the distance is considerable. 40 light years. The cost of mounting such a rescue operation would strain our resources significantly. We have our own colonies to maintain. The Convergence representative clicked and chittered, its insectoid body shifting in agitation. The translation came through flat and emotionless. Galactic protocols are clear. Distress calls require unanimous council approval for coordinated response. The Varans are not council members. They are an independent colony. Intervention would set a dangerous precedent. One by one, the council members gave their reasons. The cost was too high. The risk was too great. Resources were limited. The Varans had made their choice when they colonized an unstable system. Non-interference protocols must be maintained. Zinthar's light dimmed slightly. She had expected this response, but it still pained her. Then we are agreed? No action will be taken? The vote was unanimous. No help would come from the Galactic Council. On Kepler 442b, Thelsara watched as the message came through. She read it 3 times, hoping she had misunderstood. But the words were clear. The galaxy's greatest civilizations had decided the Varans, were not worth saving. She walked down to the shelters where her people huddled together. Parents held their children. The elderly sat quietly, accepting their fate. Thelsara wanted to cry, but she had to be strong for them. "Keep broadcasting," she told Kevlon. "Maybe someone will hear. Maybe someone will care." Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet, a junior communications officer named Sarah Mitchell was doing her routine monitoring shift. Earth had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. They were still learning, still building their first real deep space ships, still trying to understand their place among the stars. Sarah's screen lit up with an incoming signal. It wasn't addressed to Earth specifically. It was just a general distress call, broadcasting to anyone who would listen. She listened to the message, heard the desperation in the alien voice, and felt her stomach drop. She immediately forwarded it to her supervisor, who forwarded it to the Space Command, who forwarded it to the United Earth Security Council. Within 12 hours, the message had reached the highest levels of Earth's government. Commander Elena Vasquez was in her quarters when she got the call. She had been reviewing star charts, planning routine patrols. Now she stood in the briefing room, watching the recording of the Varan distress call. Thelsara's face appeared on the screen. She looked humanoid but more delicate, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "This is Colony Administrator Thelsara of the Varan settlement on Kepler 442b. Our star is dying. We have requested help from the Galactic Council, but they have refused. If anyone can hear this message, if anyone in the galaxy still believes in helping those in need, please respond. We have 12,000 souls here. Families. Children. We do not want to die alone in the dark." The recording ended. The room was silent. The Galactic Council refused? Asked Admiral Chun, Earth's senior military commander. All of them? "According to our intelligence, yes, sir," replied the briefing officer. They cited cost, distance, and non-interference protocols. Vasquez stared at the frozen image of Thelsara on the screen. Those eyes looked so frightened, so hopeful. Somewhere 40 light years away, 12,000 people were waiting to die. "How long do they have?" Vasquez asked. "Based on the stellar data, maybe 4 days when the message was sent. That was 2 days ago. So approximately 2 days remain. Can we reach them in time?" The briefing officer hesitated. "It would require pushing our ships beyond recommended limits. We would need to use the experimental slip drive at maximum capacity. And we only have 3 deep space-capable vessels. 2 of them are needed to carry enough supplies and evacuation capacity." Admiral Chun shook his head. "This is madness. We barely know these people. We don't even know if our life support systems are compatible with their biology. And if we send 2 of our 3 deep space ships on this mission, Earth will be vulnerable." Vasquez turned to face him. "Sir, with respect, they asked for help and everyone said no. Everyone in the whole galaxy just decided these people aren't worth the effort. What does that say about this galactic community we joined?" "It says they're practical," Chun replied. "It says they make hard decisions based on logic and resources. It says they've forgotten what it means to be decent," Vasquez shot back. The debate raged for hours. It went all the way to the Security Council, where Earth's leaders argued passionately on both sides. Some said humanity couldn't afford this kind of recklessness. Others said humanity couldn't afford to become like the cold, calculating species that dominated the galaxy. In the end, the vote was narrow. But it passed. Earth would answer the call that echoed across the stars. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the UESC Indomitable and watched the stars. In 6 hours, she would lead her crew into deep space on a mission that many people thought was suicide. But she couldn't stop thinking about Thelsara's face in that transmission. "Commander." "The crew is assembled for your briefing," said Lieutenant Amara Okonkwo, her chief engineer. Vasquez nodded and headed to the briefing room. When she entered, she saw 37 faces looking back at her. These were volunteers, every single one of them. When the mission was announced, over 300 people had applied. These 37 were the best, the bravest, or maybe just the craziest. "You all know why we're here," Vasquez began. "The Varan colony is dying. The Galactic Council said no. We're saying yes. This mission violates every safety protocol we have. We'll push our engines beyond their limits. We'll travel through unstable space. We might not make it there. We might not make it back. If anyone wants to leave, now is the time. No one will think less of you." Nobody moved. Dr. James Chun, the ship's xenobiologist, raised his hand. "Commander, I have a question. Why did you volunteer for this?" Vasquez was quiet for a moment. "When I was 12, there was an earthquake in my hometown in Chile. Buildings collapsed. People were trapped. The local rescue teams were overwhelmed, and they sent out calls for help. For 3 days we waited. My little sister was buried under our apartment building. We could hear her crying, but we couldn't reach her. On the 4th day, a rescue team finally arrived from Argentina. They pulled her out alive. I asked the team leader why they came when others didn't. He said, 'Because someone needed help. That's why I'm here. Because someone needs help.'" The room was silent. Then Marcus Rodriguez, the ship's pilot, spoke up. "My family came to North America as refugees. No country wanted us. We were stuck in camps for 2 years. Then Canada said yes when everyone else said no. I'm here because I remember what it feels like when someone finally answers." One by one, others shared their stories. Okonkwo's village in Nigeria had been saved by international aid workers during a famine. Chun's grandfather had been rescued from a sinking ship by strangers who risked their lives. Every person in that room had a reason to believe in helping others. "Then let's get to work," Vasquez said. "We launch in 6 hours. The Indomitable was Earth's newest deep space vessel, built with a combination of human engineering and modified alien technology from first contact. Beside her sat the Prometheus, a massive cargo hauler that had been retrofitted for this mission. Both ships were now loaded with supplies, medical equipment, temporary shelters, and everything 12,000 refugees might need. As the countdown began, messages came in from around Earth. Children had drawn pictures for the Varan kids. Families had sent toys and blankets. A church in Rome had organized a prayer service. A mosque in Istanbul was doing the same. The whole world was watching. Admiral Chun appeared on the command screen. "Commander Vasquez, this is your last chance to abort. We've received another message from the Galactic Council. They're warning us that this mission is foolish. They say we don't understand the risks. Did they offer to help?" Vasquez asked. "No." "Then we proceed, sir." "Good luck, Elena. Bring them home. All of them, including yourselves." The ships launched from Mars orbit, their engines burning bright against the darkness. Within minutes, they had left the solar system behind and engaged the slip drive, a barely tested technology that bent space around the ship, on Kepler 442b. Kevlon burst into the shelter where Thelsara was reading to a group of frightened children. "Administrator, we've received a response." Thelsara's heart jumped. "From the Council? They changed their minds?" "No. From Earth? Earth?" Thelsara frowned. "The humans? But they're so new to space travel. They barely have any ships." Kevlon pulled up the transmission. A human woman in a dark blue uniform appeared on screen. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Space Command. We received your distress call. We're coming. We have 2 ships carrying supplies and evacuation capacity for all 12,000 of your people. We will reach you in 46 hours. Hold on, Thelsara. Help is coming. Thelsara stared at the screen. The humans were coming. The newest, weakest species in the galaxy was crossing 40 light years to save strangers they'd never met. She started to cry, and around her, other Varans did the same. But these were tears of hope that the transmission was picked up by monitoring stations across the galaxy. Within hours, every major civilization knew that Earth had launched a rescue mission. In the Galactic Council chambers. The news caused chaos. "This is insanity," declared Tomas, the architect representative. "The humans have no idea what they're doing. Their ships will fail. Their crew will die. And for what? To prove a point?" The Convergence representative clicked nervously. "They are violating standard protocols. New species should observe and learn before taking such actions." Zinthara, the Luminian Council speaker, watched the data streaming in. The human ships were already pushing beyond safe speeds. Their energy signatures were unstable. By every logical calculation, this mission should fail. But something about it bothered her. She remembered when her own people had first developed consciousness, billions of years ago. They had been different then. Less careful. Less calculated. More willing to take risks for others. When had they lost that? "Send a message to Earth Command," she said quietly. "Warn them about the debris field in Sector 7 and the unstable wormhole in Sector 9. The other council members turned to stare at her. "Council Speaker, are you assisting them?" The Tideburn representative asked. "I am providing navigational data that any spacefaring species should have," Zinthara replied carefully. "Nothing more." But everyone in the chamber knew it was more than that. Aboard the Indomitable, Vasquez received the encrypted message from the Galactic Council. It contained detailed information about hazards along their route and even suggested a faster path through a decaying wormhole. "It's from the Council. Speaker herself," reported the communications officer. "Should we trust it?" Vasquez studied the data. "She's giving us a choice. The safe route takes 50 hours. We won't make it in time. The wormhole route is dangerous, but cuts travel time to 38 hours. The wormhole is listed as severely unstable," Okonkwo said, reviewing the engineering data. "Our ships might not survive the passage, but it gives us a chance to arrive before the shields fail completely," Chun added. Vasquez looked at her crew. "We didn't come this far to play it safe. Rodriguez, plot a course for the wormhole. Okonkwo, get those engines ready for whatever comes next. Chun, start preparing medical for Varan biology. We're going through." The crew scrambled to their stations. Behind them, the stars blurred as the ship accelerated even faster. On Earth, billions of people watched the news coverage. The mission had captured the world's imagination. In schools, teachers explained what was happening. Children asked their parents why the other aliens wouldn't help. The parents struggled to answer. The Galactic Council continued to monitor the human ship's progress. And despite themselves, despite thousands of years of careful, logical thinking, they found themselves hoping the humans would succeed, because somewhere in the back of their ancient minds, they remembered what it was like to care more about doing the right thing than doing the smart thing. The human ships raced through the darkness, carrying the hopes of two worlds. Behind them, Earth held its breath. Ahead of them, 12,000 Varans waited in the dying light of their sun. And in between, the cold equations of space and time would soon test whether courage and compassion could overcome impossible odds. The debris field appeared on the sensors like a graveyard of stars. Millions of pieces of broken ships, ancient weapons, and shattered stations floated through space, left over from a war fought thousands of years ago. The human ships had to pass through it to reach the wormhole. "Scanning now," reported the sensor officer. I'm reading approximately 40 million objects, ranging from dust particles to chunks the size of buildings. There's no clear path through. Commander Vasquez studied the holographic display. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers in every direction. Going around would cost them precious hours they didn't have. We go through, she decided. Rodriguez, I need your best flying. Okonkwo, keep those shields at maximum. If anything big hits us, we need to survive it. Yes, Commander, they replied together. The Indomitable entered the field first, with the Prometheus following close behind. Rodriguez's hands moved across the controls with practiced skill, dodging pieces of debris that spun through space. Some pieces were small, bouncing off the shields with bright flashes. Others were larger, requiring sharp turns that made the ship groan. This is insane, muttered Rodriguez, but his voice held a note of excitement. I'm threading a needle in a haystack during an earthquake. Behind them, the Prometheus was struggling. The cargo hauler was bigger and slower, not built for this kind of maneuvering. Vasquez watched on her screen as the larger ship clipped a piece of debris. Alarms blared. Prometheus reporting hull breach in Cargo Bay 3, came the urgent transmission. Sealing it off now. No casualties, but we've lost some of our medical supplies. Keep moving, Vasquez ordered. We'll make do with what we have. For 2 hours they picked their way through the debris field. Every person on both ships was tense, waiting for the impact that could end everything. But slowly, kilometer by kilometer, they made progress. Then Rodriguez saw it. A massive piece of an ancient battleship, easily the size of a city block, was drifting directly into their path. And it was spinning. Commander, I can't dodge that. It's too big and we're moving too fast. Vasquez made a split-second decision. Cut engines. Use maneuvering thrusters only. We'll let it pass in front of us. The ship slowed dramatically, and for a terrifying moment, the huge piece of debris filled their entire view. It spun past them with just meters to spare. Vasquez could see scorch marks on its hull, evidence of weapons fire from a war fought before humans even left Earth. Clear, Rodriguez breathed out. They emerged from the debris field battered but intact. The wormhole waited ahead, a swirling distortion in space that looked like a whirlpool made of stars. On Kepler 4, 42b, conditions were getting worse by the hour. Thelsara watched as another radiation storm swept across the colony. The shields were now failing for several minutes at a time. They had moved everyone into the deepest shelters, but even there, people were getting sick. Her youngest child, a girl named Vinara, was running a fever. The radiation was affecting the children first, their smaller bodies more vulnerable. Dr. Pelton, the colony's chief physician, was doing everything he could, but they were running out of medicine. Administrator, we're receiving a transmission from the human ships, Kevlon called out. Vasquez's face appeared on screen. She looked tired, and there was a cut on her forehead that she hadn't bothered to treat. Thelsara, we've cleared the debris field. We're about to attempt passage through the wormhole. It's going to be rough, but we should reach you in about 10 hours. How are you holding up? Thelsara tried to smile. We're managing. The children are scared. The shields are failing more frequently. But knowing you're coming helps more than you can imagine. Tell your engineers to prepare for evacuation procedures. Dr. Chun has been studying the RAM biology from your medical database. We think we can adapt our life support systems, but it's going to be tight. Every bit of preparation helps. We'll be ready. Commander Vasquez, why are you doing this? Your people barely know us. The Galactic Council said this was foolish. Vasquez was quiet for a moment. My engineer has a saying from her grandmother. If you can help and you don't, you're just another person who walked by. We're not walking by. We'll see you soon, Thelsara. Hold on. The transmission ended. Felsara looked around at her people in the shelter. They had heard the conversation. Even in their fear and sickness, she saw something new in their eyes. Hope. The Indomitable approached the wormhole. Up close, it was beautiful and terrifying. Space itself seemed to twist and fold, creating patterns that hurt to look at. Energy readings were off the charts. "This thing is less stable than the data suggested," Okonkwo reported. "Commander, I'm reading massive gravitational fluctuations. The wormhole could collapse while we're inside it." "Will the ships hold together?" Vasquez asked. "Unknown. We've never tested the hull integrity against forces like this. I can reinforce the structural supports, but it's going to strain the engines." "Do it." "We're going through." Okonkwo worked frantically, redirecting power and strengthening the ship's frame. Behind them, the Prometheus made similar preparations. "All hands, secure everything," Vasquez announced over the ship-wide communication. "We're entering the wormhole in 60 seconds. This is going to be the roughest ride of your lives." "Hold on." Rodriguez guided the ship toward the swirling entrance. The moment they touched the event horizon, the universe went crazy. The ship bucked and twisted like a living thing. Gravity changed directions every few seconds. Up became down. Down became sideways. Crew members hung on to their stations, fighting against forces that wanted to throw them across the room. The lights flickered. Alarms screamed. Chun, working in the medical bay, watched as instruments flew off their tables. He grabbed them midair as gravity reversed, then secured them as best he could. "This is definitely not covered in the medical training manual," he muttered. In engineering, Okonkwo saw stress readings spike into the red. "The structural supports are buckling. I need to redistribute power now." She worked with desperate speed, her fingers flying across the controls even as the ship tried to shake her apart. Around her, pipes groaned and metal screamed. A support beam cracked, and she had to dodge flying debris. "Hold together," she whispered to her ship. "Just hold together." On the bridge, Vasquez held onto her command chair as the universe twisted around them. Through the view screen, she could see space folded into impossible shapes. Stars streaked past in wrong directions. She thought she saw other ships, ghost images from different times using this same passage. "How long?" she shouted over the noise. 90 seconds. Rodriguez shouted back. "Maybe. Time is weird in here." The Prometheus was having an even harder time. The larger ship wasn't built for this kind of stress. In its cargo bay, containers broke free and crashed around. The crew worked desperately to secure everything while being thrown around like dolls. Then, just when it seemed the ships would tear apart, they burst out the other side. Space was normal again. Gravity worked properly. The stars stood still. "Damage report," Vasquez ordered, her voice hoarse. Reports came in from all sections. Hull breaches in 3 areas, sealed. Engine efficiency down to 70%. Several crew members injured, none critically. The Prometheus had fared worse, with more hull damage and one of its cargo bays completely depressurized. But they had made it. And according to the navigation computer, they were now only 8 hours from Kepler-442b. Far behind them. In convergence space, an insectoid observer watched the data with what might have been amazement. The humans had actually survived the wormhole passage. Against all probability, against every logical prediction, they had succeeded. The observer sent an encrypted message to its superiors. Then, after a moment of hesitation, it sent a second message directly to the human ships. It contained detailed information about the Varan, stars' radiation patterns, and suggestions for the safest approach to the planet. The message was unsigned, but Vasquez knew who it came from. Someone on the Galactic Council was helping them, even if they couldn't do it openly. "Thank you," she whispered into space, hoping somehow the message would reach them. The ships raced onward. Every hour, Vasquez spoke with Thelsara, keeping the Varans updated. Every hour, Okonkwo pushed the engines a little harder. Every hour, Chun prepared more emergency medical supplies. And every hour, 12,000 Varans huddled in their failing shelters, watching the sky burn and holding on to hope. The humans were coming. Against all odds, through debris fields and wormholes, across the vast emptiness of space, strangers were coming to save them. 8 hours to go. The dying star of Kepler 442b filled the viewscreen like a bleeding wound in space. Its surface churned with violent storms, sending waves of deadly radiation across the system. Commander Vasquez stared at it and understood why the Galactic Council had refused to help. This was a nightmare. Reading radiation levels 10 times higher than we expected, reported the sensor officer. And increasing. Commander, our shields can handle this for maybe 6 hours before they start to fail. Then we have 6 hours to evacuate 12,000 people, Vasquez said calmly. Let's not waste time. Rodriguez, take us into orbit. Okonkwo, keep those shields at maximum. All hands to evacuation stations. The Indomitable and Prometheus descended toward the planet, their shields glowing bright as they deflected waves of radiation. Below them, the Varan colony was barely visible through the haze of atmospheric interference. Thelsara stood on the landing platform, watching the sky. Around her, 12,000 Varans waited, organized into groups with their few belongings. Children clung to parents. The elderly sat quietly. Everyone looked up at the sky with hope and fear. Then they saw it. 2 ships breaking through the clouds, their hulls scorched and damaged but still flying. The Varans began to cry, to cheer, to pray in their own ways. The humans had actually come. The Prometheus settled onto the largest landing area while the Indomitable maintained orbit, using its shields to create a protective umbrella over the evacuation site. The cargo ship's massive doors opened, and humans in radiation suits rushed out. Vasquez was the first down the ramp. She walked straight to Thelsara and extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thelsara took it, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. 2 very different beings from 2 very different worlds, connected by a simple choice to help. Thank you for coming, Thelsara said, her voice breaking. Thank you for holding on, Vasquez replied. Now let's get your people home. Well, to our home. Until we can find you a better one. The evacuation began immediately, but within the first hour, they hit a major problem. Dr. Chen discovered what he had feared from studying the Varan biology data. The Varans breathed a different mixture of gases than humans. The ship's standard life support would slowly poison them. We need to convert the cargo bays, Chen explained urgently to Vasquez. Seal them off and fill them with the right atmospheric composition. But that means using our oxygen reserves. We won't have enough for both species on the journey home. How much do we need to reduce our oxygen to make enough for them? Chun did the calculations quickly. We'd need to cut our own oxygen levels by 40%. The crew would survive, but we'd be weak, dizzy, constantly struggling to breathe. Vasquez didn't hesitate. Do it. We came here to save them, not halfway save them. The crew knew the risks. Make the conversion. The human crew worked with desperate speed, sealing cargo bays and modifying the atmospheric systems. It was incredibly complex work, made harder by the bays. Constant radiation storms that forced everyone to work in heavy protective suits. Okonkwo led a team outside the ship to repair damage from the wormhole passage while simultaneously helping with the evacuation. She was welding a hull breach when a massive radiation pulse hit. Her suit's alarm screamed as radiation levels spiked beyond safe limits. Okonkwo, get inside now, Vasquez ordered over the radio. 30 more seconds and this breach is sealed, Okonkwo replied, not stopping her work. The ship needs to be airtight for the Varans. That's an order, Lieutenant. With respect, Commander, I'm almost done. Okonkwo finished the weld as another pulse hit. By the time she staggered back inside, her radiation exposure was critical. Chun rushed her to medical, his face grim. Meanwhile, Rodriguez was making repeated runs between the planet and orbit in a shuttle, ferrying Varans who were too weak to make the journey in the main ships. He flew through radiation storms that would have killed an unshielded person instantly, relying on the shuttle's failing shields and his own skill. On one run, he carried a group of Varan children. One little girl, Vinara, Thelsara's youngest, was burning with radiation fever. Rodriguez held her hand during the flight, talking to her softly, even though she couldn't understand English. "It's okay, little one," he said. "You're going to be fine. We've got you now. Nobody's getting left behind." That's not how humans do things. The evacuation continued through the day and into the night. The human crew pushed themselves beyond exhaustion. They lifted elderly Varans who couldn't walk. They carried children. They made sure every single person got aboard safely. As the hours passed, the radiation got worse. The Indomitable's shields began to fluctuate. Vasquez made a decision that would haunt some of her crew for years afterward. "Take the ship down," she ordered Rodriguez. "Position us between the star and the colony. Use our hull to shield the evacuation site." "Commander, that will expose us to direct radiation," Rodriguez protested. "The shields are already failing. Our hull will take massive damage." "I know. Do it anyway." The Indomitable descended and positioned itself like a mother protecting her children. The massive starship absorbed radiation that would have killed everyone below. The hull began to glow from the heat. Metal started to warp. But below, the evacuation could continue. In engineering, Okonkwo watched the damage reports from her medical bed. "The ship is dying to protect them," she whispered to Chun. "The ship is a ship," Chun replied gently. "It can be rebuilt. Those people down there can't be." With 3 hours left before the shields failed completely, they reached the final group of Varans. Thelsara was in this group, refusing to leave until all her people were safe. She walked through the ship one last time, checking every shelter, every hiding place, making sure no one was left behind. "Everyone's aboard," she finally reported to Vasquez. 12,000 souls. Every single one. Then let's go home." The ships began to lift off, their engines straining under the combined weight of evacuees, supplies, and damage. The Prometheus went first, carrying 8,000 Varans in its converted cargo bays. The Indomitable followed, carrying 4,000 plus. The human crew died as they climbed out of the atmosphere. A final massive radiation pulse hit. The Indomitable shuddered and nearly fell. Alarms screamed across all decks. Fire broke out in 3 sections. "Main engines failing." Okonkwo shouted from engineering, having refused to stay in medical. "I'm losing power. Keep us flying," Vasquez ordered. "We're so close." Okonkwo rerouted every spare bit of power to the engines. Life support dropped to minimum. Gravity failed in some sections. The lights went out, replaced by emergency red lighting. But the engines kept firing. They broke free of the planet's gravity, while just as the colony's shields below failed completely. Through the view screen, they watched as the surface of Kepler 442b was scoured by radiation. The colony where the Varans had built their lives for 12 years was erased in moments. But everyone who had lived there was safe. Every single person died in the converted cargo bays. Varans held each other and cried. They had lost their home, their belongings, everything except their lives and each other. But they were alive. The humans had come. The humans had saved them. Thelsara found Vasquez on the bridge. The human commander looked exhausted, her face pale from breathing the reduced oxygen levels. Burns covered her arms from fighting fires during the escape. "You sacrificed your ship for us. Talsara said quietly. Ships can be repaired, Vasquez replied. The same thing Chun had said. People can't. The Galactic Council said this was foolish. They said you would fail. Vasquez smiled tiredly. Maybe it was foolish. Maybe we should have listened to them. But then where would you be? Talsara took Vasquez's hand again. We would be dead. Every one of us. My children would be dead. Because the wise ancient species of the galaxy decided we weren't worth the cost. Wow, we're young and stupid, Vasquez said. We haven't learned to count the cost of doing the right thing. The two damaged ships turned toward home, carrying their precious cargo of 12,000 lives. Behind them, Kepler 442b's dying star pulsed one final time. As if saying goodbye. And across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered if maybe the young, foolish humans had just taught the old, wise civilizations something they had forgotten long ago. The journey home should have taken 6 days. It took 9. The Indomitable limped through space, its engines running at barely 40% capacity. Hull breaches had been patched with whatever materials the crew could find. Life support was stretched to the breaking point, supporting far more people than the ship was designed for. Every breath of air was rationed. Every drop of water was precious. In the cargo bays converted for Varan habitation, 12,000 refugees tried to make sense of what had happened. They had lost everything except our lives. Children asked when they could go home, not understanding that home no longer existed. Parents struggled to explain while dealing with their own grief and fear. But they were alive. And slowly, as the shock wore off, they began to understand the magnitude of what the humans had done. Talsara walked through the cargo bays each day, checking on her people. She saw Varan engineers working alongside human crew members, sharing knowledge and helping to keep the damaged ships running. She saw Varan doctors treating both species, learning human medicine while teaching their own. She saw children from both worlds playing together despite not speaking the same language. On the 3rd day, she found little Vinara in the medical bay. The radiation fever had broken, thanks to Dr. Chun's tireless work. The human doctor sat beside her bed, exhausted but smiling. She's going to be fine, Chun told Talsara. All the children are going to be fine. We got to them in time. Because you came, Talsara said softly. Because you crossed the galaxy for strangers. Chun shrugged. What else would we do? Leave you to die? That's not who we are. News of the rescue spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Every species heard the story. The young humans with their primitive ships had accomplished what the great civilizations had deemed impossible. They had crossed 40 light years, survived a debris field and an unstable wormhole, and evacuated 12,000 people from a dying world. And they had done it at tremendous cost to themselves. In the Galactic Council chambers, the mood was uncomfortable. The council members had made their decision based on logic and established protocols. But now they were watching footage of human crew members working until they collapsed. Of ships held together by courage and determination. Of an entire species that chose compassion over calculation. Council speakers in Thara watched the transmissions in silence. She saw human children sharing their food rations with Varan refugees. She saw crew members with radiation poisoning refusing treatment until Varan patients were cared for first. She saw Captain Vasquez walking through her dying ship, making sure every single refugee was comfortable before tending to her own needs. This is illogical, Termas rumbled, his silicon form shifting uncomfortably. They had no obligation to these people. They risked their own safety. They damaged their only deep space vessels. For what gain? For no gain, Zinthara replied quietly. That is exactly the point. The Tideburn representative's water-filled suit rippled with emotion. But surely this is inefficient. Surely there were better uses of their resources. Better by what measure? Zinthara asked. We have spent 10,000 years optimizing everything. Efficiency, logic, calculation. We have become very good at determining what we should not do. When did we forget what we should do? The convergence representative clicked nervously. The protocols exist for good reasons. Do they? Zinthara's light pulsed brighter. Or have our protocols become an excuse for inaction? The humans broke every rule we hold dear. And because of that, 12,000 lives were saved. Lives we decided were not worth saving. The chamber fell silent. Then something unprecedented happened. The convergence representative stood and made a formal announcement. We are dispatching a repair ship to assist the human vessels. They should not make this journey alone. One by one, other species followed. The Tyburns sent medical supplies. The architects transmitted advanced repair schematics. The Luminians provided energy to boost the failing engines. Even species that had never before involved themselves in rescue operations sent help. On the 5th day of the journey, the human ships detected an incoming vessel. Alarms sounded until they identified it as a convergence repair ship. Unidentified human vessels. This is the convergence repair ship restoration, came the transmission. We are here to assist with your repairs and resupply. Please prepare to receive assistance. Vasquez stared at the screen in disbelief. They're helping us? It appears so, Commander, the communications officer replied. Equally stunned, the convergence ship matched their speed and sent over engineering teams. The insectoid engineers worked with incredible precision, repairing damage in hours that would have taken the humans days. They brought food, water, medical supplies, and most precious of all, materials to restore the life support systems. Why are you helping us? Vasquez asked the convergence team leader. The alien clicked thoughtfully before the translator responded. Because you showed us we were wrong. The Council decided your mission was foolish. We watched, expecting to see failure. Instead, we saw something we had not witnessed in millennia. We saw beings who acted not because it was logical, but because it was right. This is worth preserving. More ships arrived over the next days. A Tideborne medical vessel treated the injured crew members. An architect construction ship reinforced the damaged hulls. A Luminian energy ship provided power when the engines faltered. The two battered human vessels, which had set out alone into the darkness, now traveled home surrounded by ships from across the galaxy. On the 8th day, they entered Earth's solar system. Every ship in the human fleet had come out to greet them. Space stations fired celebratory salvos. On Earth below, billions of people watched and celebrated. But the biggest surprise came from the Galactic Council itself. Council Speaker Zinthara's image appeared on every screen in the fleet. Vessels Indomitable and Prometheus, this is the Galactic Council. We formally request your presence at an emergency council session. And we extend to humanity an invitation to join the council, not as observers or junior members, but as full equals. In the Indomitable's cargo bays, the Varans heard the announcement and began to cry. In the human sections, crew members hugged each other in exhausted joy. Thelsara found Vasquez on the bridge. Your species has been in space for 50 years. The youngest species ever invited to the council waited 300 years. What you did changed everything. Vasquez looked out at the ships surrounding them, at the blue-green planet growing larger ahead. We didn't do it to join the council. We did it because you needed help. I know. That is why you are worthy. The ships landed on Earth to a celebration unlike any the planet had ever seen. The Varans stepped onto solid ground for the first time in weeks, many of them falling to their knees and touching the Earth. They were welcomed with open arms. Countries around the world offered to host refugees. 8 organizations mobilized. Within hours, every Varan had a place to stay, food to eat, and medical care. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened in its ancient chamber. But this time, a human representative sat among them. Commander Elena Vasquez, promoted to Admiral, took her place at the council table. Council Speaker Zinthara addressed the assembly. For 10,000 years, this council has guided the galaxy through logic and careful calculation. We have avoided risk. We have prioritized stability. We have forgotten something essential. Humanity has reminded us. She turned to Vasquez. Admiral, would you share your perspective on what this council should represent? Vasquez stood, aware that billions of beings across the galaxy were watching. I'm not a politician or a philosopher. I'm just a ship captain. But I learned something on our mission to Kepler 442b. The Varan sent out a call for help. Everyone heard it. Everyone chose not to answer. They had good reasons, logical reasons. But in the end, those reasons meant 12,000 people would die alone and afraid. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Civilizations are measured not by their age or their technology or their power. They're measured by what they do when someone needs help. The galaxy is full of species that know how to calculate costs and benefits. Maybe what we need are more species that know how to care. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Zinthara's light pulsed brightly. The council votes to establish the Terran Accord, a new framework for mutual aid and rescue operations. Any species in distress can call for help, and member species will respond based not on calculation, but on capability and compassion. The vote was unanimous. 5 years later, Thelsara stood on a cliff overlooking a new Varan colony. They had named it Vasquez's Hope, built on a safe world donated by 3 council species working together. Below her, Varan children played in gardens tended by humans, convergence, and a dozen other species. Her daughter Vinara ran up to her, speaking fluent English now alongside her native Varan. Mama, the human teacher says we're learning about the rescue today in history class. Will you come talk to us? Of course, Thelsara said, taking her daughter's hand. In the classroom, children of 6 different species sat together. Thelsara told them the story. She told them about the darkest day of her life, when the galaxy's great civilizations had said no. And she told them about the day Hope arrived on battered human ships. Why did they come? Asked a young Convergence student. Thelsara smiled. Because we needed help. And because humans believe that's reason enough. Across the galaxy, the Terran Accord had created a new era. Rescue ships bearing its symbol patrolled space lanes. Aid stations had been established in remote regions. Species that had never cooperated before worked together to save lives. The old civilizations had taught the galaxy how to think. The young humans had reminded them how to feel. And when the next distress call echoed across the stars, it wasn't silence that answered. It was voices from 100 worlds, all saying the same thing the humans had said. We're coming. Hold on. Help is on the way.